from New York. No, we are in Laguna Woods, and it's the Laguna Woods Show with your host and moderator, Esther Grossfield. Here's Esther.
Hi, welcome to the Laguna Woods Show, where every guest matters. Today we have a very special guest. He's a cardiologist, and his name is Dr. Jorge Monastersky. Hi, doctor.
Hi, hello.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks, good afternoon, and thanks for offering me the opportunity to share my life experience in my career.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Absolutely. I was born in Argentina. I came to United States, trained at Cedars-Sinai and Loma Linda in California, and I was in practice for approximately almost 30 years in Laguna Hills. The majority of my practice was basically leisure world. Later on, I gave up my practice, and I liked it so much that after a few years, I came back to work, part-time in different clinics.
Okay. So, why is it that the number one killer in this country is a heart disease?
Okay, well, approximately 1 million people die of heart attacks in the United States. Majority are men, but almost as significant women have the same rate of death.
So how can we prevent from having a heart attack?
Well, first of all, the important thing is knowledge. And being heart attacks so prevalent, we have to educate, and that's probably my role over the last few years, trying to educate the general public and my patients. I was involved in the American Heart Association for 8 years, and I produced TV, radios, and that was part of my involvement with the community. Now, how do we prevent? We have two types of preventions. One is primary prevention, that means before the heart attack or before the surgery, and the other is secondary prevention, is after the event to prevent further complications.
Yeah.
So how we prevent it? Well, first of all, we prevent it by knowing the risk factors that are so prevalent in producing the heart attacks. Number one is hereditary. So people who have parents with heart condition before 60 are more common to having heart attack. Second is high blood pressure. We call it hypertension. Hypertension is called the silent killer. There's 80 million people in the United States have hypertension, and 1/6 of the population doesn't know what's going on. The third risk factor is smoking. How does smoking produce heart attacks? Well, first of all, smoking alters the normal vessels in the heart, producing plaques that I'll describe later. Doing that alters the circulation and alters to the lipids or the cholesterol profile. So once you stop smoking, the effect of smoking still lasts up to 10 years. The other issue you have to keep in mind that secondary smoking is as bad as regular smoking. Okay? The third risk factor is cholesterol. Why? Because cholesterol, when they accumulate in the plaque, they will produce closure and heart attacks. So normal values are total cholesterol have to be less than 200. HDL, or the good cholesterol, has to be 45 or 50, and LDL has to be less than 100. Okay? Next factors are basically diabetes. Diabetes is very, very serious condition. There's about 20 to 30 million people in the United States that have diabetes, and they have there's about 40% of the population that have what we call pre-diabetes, that eventually will turn into diabetes. So most of the people, diabetes, most of the times doesn't have any symptoms. And how do we find it? By just doing lab tests. Next factors too is stress. Stress is not as important as, high blood pressure or diabetes, but can precipitate the problem. How they precipitate the problem? By releasing some hormones we call adrenaline and cortisol. That increases the stress and precipitate heart attacks. Another risk factor, very important, is obesity. Because obesity, people who are obese, they are more predisposed to have high blood pressure, more diabetes, more high cholesterol. So the idea is that we need to have checkups, regular checkups. And if people have family history of this condition, they have to start earlier, okay? Next risk factor is being sedentary. People have to be exercising. And why does it work? First of all, reduces stress, brings down the blood pressure, reduces the cholesterol, and controls diabetes. And the last but not the least is nutrition. It's very, very important, a good diet.
What kind of a diet?
Well, diet has to be basically a lot of vegetables, fruits, salads, nuts, avoid red meat. And one I would say, if you had to have somebody, how would you deal with this? First, I would look at his nutrition condition. Second, his exercise. Now, when you exercise, if you get a person which is very sedentary, you need to avoid injuries. So they have to start slowly. The easiest exercise is walking. Mm-hmm. The American Heart Association promotes exercise by you need to do 45 minutes of exercise 4 times a week. Now, how you motivate people to do that? Because it's very difficult. You start very slowly. Is something little is more important than nothing. So you cannot do it, get somebody, a buddy, a friend, your girlfriend, and do it together. So it's going to be pleasure. The important thing, you have to enjoy it. So if you look at these risk factors with your physician, which is going to be a connection, you can prevent, reduce, and cure a heart condition.
You can cure it, huh?
Yes.
Cure it. What about people that already had a heart attack, and how can they prevent from not having another heart attack?
Okay. First of all, you need to go back to the same situation. You need to reduce stress, you have to control your blood pressure, you have to control the diabetes. Whatever was needed to do for primary prevention has to be stronger because you have problems there. So you need to do that, because even we don't know the long-acting effect of open heart surgery or stents or something like that. So you need to help, because we're dealing with a process that's no cure. It's a process that's slowly going. So by changing your lifestyle, you reduces the possibility of further events.
So when you go to the doctor, what kind of tests does the doctor do?
Okay. I say it is very important to have, like the old saying, you need 2 to tango. You have to have a connection with the doctor. You have to have a doctor. Unfortunately, medicine has changed for the worse. There's no communication. So I would say when you go to the doctor, you have to have written questions. And you have to demand that these questions are answered. If the doctor brushes you off and says, you should say, I'm sorry, I didn't hear your answer. You demand the questions, okay? And you demand the answers. So, question that the doctor will tell you. The other issue that you have to remind, if you have medical records, things from the past that will help you to, for your doctor to take care of you, bring it with you. bring the list of medications. It's important. The other thing is this, not only the medications, if you're taking herbal stuff or vitamins or supplements, bring it. Because sometimes this supplement, we talked the other day, can interfere, with your medications, especially, for instance, on medication to control the lipids. So it's important that the doctor knows the medication that. So when you get there, the doctor will ask you the reason of your visit. So you tell them, Let me give you an example. The word angina. Angina means basically pain. Angina pectoris means pain coming from the chest. Okay? This is a typical description. Many years ago, a person was grabbing the chest. Mm-hmm. Okay?
Yeah.
And because having pain.
Yeah.
Now, people says because the heart is placed between the middle part and the left side, everything has to be in the left side. That's not true. Sometimes you can have it on the right side of the chest. Sometimes you can have it in your shoulders, in your arms, in your back. I seen somebody having wrist pain. Okay, now.
Yeah, what's the most unusual symptoms that people have that they don't know? You told me one time that...
Well, the reason you need to think about it because you put it together. When a person comes with a discomfort, if they having breaking in a cold sweat, if they have shortness of breath, if they are basically look very pale and in distress, you put it together. Let me give you an example. I saw 5 years ago a person that was complaining of reflux, stomach problems, and he was treated by his private physician, he was by his gastroenterologist. They did $1 million workup, and they couldn't find anything. So I sat down with the guy, and I says, is your discomfort when you are exerting yourself? And he says, yes. So what I did, I put him on a stress test. Within 10 days, the guy had quintuple bypass. So you need to think about, because otherwise you miss it. That's the important thing, is putting the information together. And later on, it's not only pain. You can have heaviness, you can have tightness, you can have pressure, you can have shortness of breath. So when you see somebody who is in an unusual discomfort that keeps repeating the same situation, you have to be a little suspicious and give the benefit of the doubt. Mm-hmm. And doing that and not just describing. So what precipitates angina? Cold weather, smoking,
cold weather,
stress, heavy meals, involving in a serious discussion. So these are things that we're talking about, reducing those factors to avoid these problems. Okay, so you go to the doctor, he asks you all these questions, and document. So what does he do later? Okay, he does lab work. Why does he do lab work? He wants to check your cholesterol, your blood sugar, if you have anemia, all the stuff, okay? He does an EKG. What's an EKG? The heart manufactures electricity. So by doing an EKG, when they put all the little gadgets in your chest, if there is an alteration in the electricity to the heart, we can detect if the patient has what they call a heart attack or the word called ischemia. Ischemia means lack of blood. So an EKG is very, very important. However, 30% of the EKGs during heart attacks are normal. So, you have to have an index of suspicion. Okay, so you have the physical exam, you have the lab work, you have the EKG. What's next?
So tell me about the treadmill.
Well, the treadmill is called a stress test. Mm-hmm. Why? You're walking, and what happened, you have all the wires like an EKG, and you have what they call a goal, a heart rate. So when the stress in your heart we look into two different things. We look into see if we can precipitate the discomfort, and at the same time see in the EKG if there's lack of circulations. So this is the information, it's changes in the EKG and reproduction of the symptoms, okay? So that's probably a fairly good test. Not super accurate, but it's fairly good test. You know, we can talk about doing ultrasound of the heart, further tests to check how well the heart is pumping, if there's any leakage on the valve, and ultimately, the last test is what they call a coronary angiogram, which is basically introducing through a vein in your wrist or in your groin, going to the heart, flashing some dye, and taking pictures to see if there's any blockage. So here you have a normal coronaries. Here you have normal coronaries on the left side. You see they're smooth, no changes. This is basically left side. Right side is this. And they are smooth and they are nicely contoured. Now, you have here on this side, basically you have a blockage. You can see here, you can see like it's cut off. That basically means that there is a blockage now.
I don't know if you can see that.
This is basically, you can see here that the artery is cut off. And later on, whoever is doing the angiogram open up and means what they call an angioplasty, and look, is basically back to normal. Okay?
What about the red?
Okay, we'll get there.
Yeah, this.
Okay, now, I'm sure you heard the word hardening of the arteries,
Yes.
or arteriosclerosis.
Yeah.
Arteriosclerosis is basically a very complicated issue that is and will not only in the heart, will be in the brain, the neck, different arteries will close up and produce, death or further complications. So on the upper side, you can see what they call a cross-section. Cross-section means that you have an artery and it's crossed away. And you see, it's nicely opened. It's nicely open.
Yeah.
So in the followings, you can see there's deposit of cholesterol, calcium, blood component, and at the end, you see that the artery is closed, and this is the heart attack. So that's called a plaque. The plaque is composed of calcium, cholesterol, blood, and other situation, plus an inflammation that contribute to a closure of a coronary artery and subsequent a heart attack.
So to reverse the damage without doing a surgery, for example, what do we need to do?
Okay, well, first of all, when depends on the situation. There are situations which are life and death. So you have a patient who has an impending heart attack, doing something, either surgery or a stent or something like that will save this person's life. So doing an angiogram, you say, well, this patient doesn't need surgery, doesn't do anything. What are we doing? Go back to what they call prevention. And we're looking at the risk factors: a good diet, exercise, nutrition, control the blood pressure, control the lipids, reducing the stress, exercise, and that will help to reduce further problems. There's no guarantee that this is going to help to take care of the problem, but at least will reduce the problems.
What's the difference between cardiac arrest and a heart attack?
Well, a heart attack basically means that there is a closure of the artery.
Okay.
Cardiac arrest is when the heart stops working, period.
Just like that.
Just that stops. So cardiac arrest is one of the complications of a heart attack.
I see.
Now, going back, I think we need to start doing this with kids. Obesity in kids is rampant. It's amazing, especially in minorities, Hispanic and Afro-Americans. You can see, I saw about 3 years ago, a 15 years old kid weighing 350 pounds. So this is a venture or adventure for the rest of your life. You need to learn how to cook, you need to exercise. That's the reason we need to teach the families how to cook healthy. You need to teach the family when they go to the supermarket to check for the labels. Low salt, low fat, low sugar. Very important. Look at that. It's not a matter of the price, it's your life, so you need to get healthy stuff. You need to exercise. That's the reason we need to get PE in the schools. It really is important to do that. And as adults, I'm telling you, you don't need to do much. Sometimes gardening is minimal, but you can do it. And
just
walking,
moving a little
just
bit.
moving, just do it even 10 minutes, twice a day. And you not only that, your stress will help you. Not only the heart will help your stress life, will sleep better, your attitude is better. You change everything because you change all your hormonal system. And you can cope better with stress.
If somebody drinks a lot of water, that's a good idea.
Pardon me?
To drink a lot of water
Well, it makes no difference.
doesn't make a difference.
No. Well, alcohol, yes. Alcohol, yes, because if you drink alcohol in excess, you can produce heart disease. You can produce liver disease. You can produce brain disease. You can produce nerve disease. So alcohol is a no-no.
Once a day?
Once a day, especially if you have, red wine is fine. Beer is not good. But, red wine, 1 glass, maybe 2 glasses, probably because work as what they call as an antioxidant and might increase the HDL. That's the reason it works.
You might decrease?
Increase your HDL.
Oh, the HDL, right.
The HDL.
The LDL is the bad cholesterol.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't know all this.
So it's basically education. Now, we've been having problems to Medicare to do what they call primary prevention. So we are paying, the stuff. Now, Medicare is getting a little smarter and get for primary prevention and helps people, because otherwise the cost of diabetes in the United States to take care of diabetes is about $200 million a year or over that, with all the complications.
That's very interesting. So basically, we have to eat healthy. And again, people that had a heart attack, if they eat healthier, they're not going to have it.
Absolutely. This is
because a lot of people had already a heart attack.
We used to say that when a person is after certain ages, 80, shouldn't change the diet. No, that's not true, because the incidence of heart attacks is probably in the older group. The other thing you need to realize, the heart attacks are more prevalent in male than females. But once the females become in menopause, because they lose the estrogen, the incidence is the same. The other point is that females have heart attacks. And I've seen females going to the emergency room 2 or 3 times, and they were sent home. And they come and they have a massive heart attack and they die within 24 hours. So the awareness of heart condition in female has to be very, very considered.
Is the heart attack, does it come slowly? Do people have symptoms like weeks in advance? Some people have symptoms like
Okay, let me
weeks.
tell you something. Most common death occurs within the first 45 minutes of a heart attack. Now, to answer your question, there is no pattern. People can have discomfort for years. People can have a heart attack and die like that. There's nothing there. But if you give you time, a warning, they might think about. So I've seen patients, for instance, they've been going around for chest pain with the ear. They haven't done anything. They figured out it's muscle pain. you know, and later on we put them on a treadmill and bingo, you know, they have some problem. So the awareness of that something goes wrong, putting together, you know, and that is altering the lifestyles. Suppose the person is very active, and all of a sudden they start having shortness of breath, getting tired easily, cold sweat, having discomfort anywhere. So that's a red light, I would say.
Wow, that's very interesting. Well, we learned so much today. We are all going to start eating healthier. That's the key, huh? Eating healthier.
The other issue.
Do exercise.
Do I have a couple minutes to explain something else?
1 minute.
Okay. Cooperation with your doctor. When you go to your doctor, you need to be sure if he gives you medications, you need to know what kind of medications. You need to know the side effects of the medications. You need to know alternatives. And if you're not happy with him, for Pete's sake, get another doctor.
Always have another opinion.
Get another opinion, exactly.
Another opinion.
But you have, I always say that the mouse is not only to eat. There's no dumb question. Could be a dumb answer. But again, you ask a question because you're concerned. So you're entitled to an answer.
To an answer.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you for watching. And next time we'll have another interesting person. Thank you. Bye.